in the comments, what I want you to put is, do you struggle with commitment issues? Do you struggle with commitment to yourself? Do you struggle with commitment to consistency in you showing up and achieving the things that you want to achieve to reach your potential? So when I talk about commitment, I talk about, can you commit physically, mentally, emotionally, financially to staying committed to your goals, to your aspirations, to you becoming the person that you want to be? And I'm going to go through this video here, and by the end of the video, I want you to have a clear idea about the 3 things that are going to stop you committing to yourself and how we can overcome them. So the biggest problem for a lot of guys in terms of committing to themselves is that they probably don't know how to. They don't know how to commit to themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, because they haven't probably committed to themselves before, right? If I turned around and said to someone, can you get in that car and drive that car, and they've never driven before, it's kind of like the same thing. It's the same analogy. You don't know how to do something you don't know how to do, which is why we're doing this show, so that you can raise that awareness, right? So there are 3 key blockers to stopping guys commit fully to themselves. Number 1 is fear. Fear comes with overthinking, fear of worst case scenario, fear of failure, fear of judgment. Okay? If we commit to ourselves, man, I fear I don't know what to expect, and fear comes off the back of not knowing what to expect. A lack of courage and conviction. So having the courage to do what you said you were going to do, because you don't know what's going to come out the back of it. So as we go through that process, we don't fully understand what we're getting into, and we lack that slight bit of courage to step over the line and go and explore. And then the last one is worst case scenario thinking. So when you commit to something financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, you go straight to the worst case scenario that is possible for you on this journey, okay? And it ends up becoming a fear-mongering exercise, so much so you end up just talking yourself out of the whole process completely. Okay. Getting a little feet upstairs. So what is the solution? What is the solution from here? How do we make sure that we can overcome those things to reach your potential? Okay, let me just... So one of the things that I think is most important here is 2 things. Number 1 is showing up. That's the most important one. The most important thing you can ever do is to show up, whether it's right or wrong in terms of what you're doing, in terms of the showing up element. It's the first thing that we've got to make sure that we're focusing on. Number 2 is making sure that we know what we're showing up to achieve. Okay, so if we don't know what we're showing up to achieve, then we don't really know what to show up to, and that's where we can lack that commitment that we're looking for, because we kind of get lost and we go around in circles, and you end up becoming really frustrated and stressed about not achieving enough. So showing up at the start and then working towards a plan is secondary, right? So when we think about fear, the only way that we're ever going to get over fear is by actually doing the thing and taking action. So whenever you think about somebody who is fearful of riding a bike and getting over riding a bike, you end up riding the bike and going, what was I scared of? The fear of commitment to a relationship. All of a sudden you fear like going into a relationship, and then you're in one and you're like, man, this is amazing. Do you know what I mean? And then there's bungee jumping. When you do your first bungee jump, when you go on your first ride at Alton Towers or Thorpe Park, and you go on it and you think, oh my God, that fear's gone, because you've consumed the feelings that are going on in there. You've overcome it. You've seen the other side of what's on fear. It's like fear is this wall that if you smash through and you come out the other side, you start to go, oh my God, it's not as bad as I thought. Or if it is as bad as you thought, then you've learned something. Okay, and then courage is a habit for me, like taking courage in your actions, or having the conviction to go through with what you said you was going to do almost becomes habitual, it becomes a habit, becomes a mentality. And then worst case scenario thinking is, I always think we can counter that by thinking, what's the best case scenario? So a lot of lads always go to the worst case scenario of, I thought one of my kids were out then, sorry. We always go to the worst case scenario. What about the best case scenario? How do we get to that best case scenario? If I follow this funnel and I follow this route, it's going to take me to that place that I want to get to. If I commit to this. And I always think that if we think about those three things that stop the commitment, and we focus on the three opposites of the things that could get us to the place that we want to be, it always falls down to showing up and following the process. So when we follow the process and we show up, the commitment becomes easier because you're in that flow, you're in that process, you're in that mentality. And then suddenly commitment doesn't become such a big thing. Financially, men are very reluctant to invest in themselves because they overthink it, because they're fearful, and end up going down this road of staying the same because they never invest in themselves. You know, my first mentor, I couldn't afford him, and I ended up paying for him. And it was the best thing that I ever did because I knew that I needed somebody to help me commit into my business, into my personal life, into my organisation. And it's taking that commitment to change, right? And there is that big disconnect for a lot of guys financially to commit. And we sit there and we've got savings in the bank, yet we're struggling. And then we look at the energy levels that we have and we won't commit them, and we just spend our energy watching Netflix or drinking or moaning or consuming social media or hanging around people that are negative, and we don't commit to breaking away from that. So we stay the same. Okay, but if we can think about best case scenario, if we can continuously keep doing things on a daily basis that breaks through that fear barrier, if we can have the courage and conviction to do what we said we were going to do, then we change the habit, we change the messaging, we build the commitment momentum, so much so that you start to see the benefits of changing your life, of a happier life, of being in more control of your emotions, or having a better marriage, of being closer with your kids as your body changing, and all of those good commitments that come off the back of it, right? But many guys will never change because they're unwilling to commit. And people are like, well, that's a bit negative, but it's not, because it's real. Over the last 5 years, I've seen multiple lads not commit to themselves, and they're still in the same place. I still see the same comments coming through on my social media posts, facing the same problems that they faced like 2 years ago when they did one of our 5-day challenges. Do you know what I mean? So the benefits of it, of committing, are huge. For those people that will change their life and they are in control and they are reaching their potential and they're thriving, is because they're committing. And the others, they just disappear, they moan and complain, they say that you're being negative, they disappear, they won't listen to it, and they bury their head under a rock. And that's just the way it goes. You've got two options. You commit, or you don't commit, but you deal with the consequences of not committing, and you embrace the rewards of committing. That's about as much as I can talk about it. I want you to think about one thing. So this is my call to action. I want you to think about one thing you're going to commit to next week, whether it's doing a yoga class every day, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's a run, whether it's getting up every single morning. I want you to choose something that you're going to commit to. And I want you to commit to just telling me what that's going to be in the comments below. And commit to it and do it. And do what you said you were going to do. And start building the process of overcoming fear, not overthinking, not thinking worst case scenario, having the courage and new convictions, doing what you said you were going to do, and start the process. Start the process just with that one thing next week. It's not a lot to do, right? If you're going to do that, put it in the comments, let me know, and we'll go from there.